like as easy as the adding and subtracting where you just multiply the individual numbers, okay? So let me write, we're going to do A, 2, 3, 2, 1. And then we're going to multiply that times B. So you do want to write this out like this because we're going to do some labeling, and then we're going to make ourselves a little chart to help us keep our answers organized. When we multiply matrices, we have to deal with the rows in the first matrix and the columns in the second matrix. So if I look at my first matrix, I have 2 rows, right? So I'm going to label them row 1 and row 2. And the reason I'm labeling this is because it just helps me stay organized with what I'm doing as I go through the process. And then for the second matrix, we're going to focus on the columns. So we have column 1, column 2. Again, we multiply rows by columns. So here's the process. We're going to start with the first row, row 1 and column 1, okay? And what I like to do is I like to make myself a little chart over here, row 1, column 1, and I'm going to put my work off to the side. Once you get the hang of it, you might not use the little charts anymore, but I have found over the years that it does make it a little bit easier just to keep it organized so that when we get our final product, it's easy to write the answer. So what we do is we start with the first set of numbers, the first element times the first element there. 2 times 4 gives me how much? 8, okay? But then we have to add the other 2 elements multiplied together. So, and usually, because I have to make a video so people who aren't here see it, I do it on the board because I like to use my fingers. With the first matrix, we go across. The second matrix, we go down. So the next pair of numbers we're going to multiply are 3 and 6. What's 3 times 6? 18. Okay, so I took the first 2 numbers, the 2 and the 4. I'm going to do it up here at the same time so you can see what I'm talking about using my fingers. Row 1, column, nope. Row 2, column 1, column 2. Row 1, column 1 is what I'm focusing on. I do this, multiply, and then put a plus, and then we go across and down, and we multiply, and that's where we get those numbers. So that's kind of multiply plus multiply. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add those. What is 8 plus 18? 26. So when I write my final answer in row 1, column 1, I'm going to have the number 26. Is everybody okay with that so far? Okay. I'm going to write my answer. Row 1, column 1 is 26. Then we are going to do row 1, column 2. Row 1, column 2. We basically multiply each row by each column. Okay, so we're going to multiply now. This is going to get confusing with all of my highlights. We're going to multiply 2 times 3. What's 2 times 3? 6. Plus, then we're going to go across and down again. So we did 2 times 3, and then we're going to go across and down, and we multiply again. And we're going to go 3 times 0, which is 0. And so then we add those 2 together. 6 plus 0 is 6. So in row 1, column 2, my element is going to be 6. Make a little bit of sense? Now, have we multiplied the first row by both columns in the second matrix? Okay, so we're finished with row 1. We're going to now move on to row 2. Let me try to erase some of this so that it's not actually, I'm just going to erase the whole thing and rewrite it. Be easier. Give me just a second. Okay, so now we're going to do row 2, column 1, and then we're going to go row 2, column 2. So starting row 2, column 1, we are going to multiply 2 times 4 gives me 8, plus we go across and then down. 1 times 6, which gives me 6. And 8 plus 6 is 14, and that 14 goes in row 2, column 1 in my answer. And then we are going to go row 2, column 2. We are going to multiply the first elements. 2 times 3 gives me 6. And then we multiply the second elements. 1 times 0 gives me 0. And 6 plus 0 is 6, and that goes in row 2, column 2. So that would be my final answer, a 2 by 2. So we're going to do B times C. So I'm going to write B. That's 4, 3, 6, 0 times C, which is 0, negative 6, 5, and 1. Again, I'm going to label the rows in my first matrix and the columns in my second matrix. And anytime you multiply a 2 by 2 by a 2 by 2, you're always going to end up with a 2 by 2 for your answer. So I'm going to set up my row column chart. All right, so we're going to start row 1, column 1. First numbers together. So 4 times 0 gives me 0. And then we do the second numbers across and down. So 3 times 5 gives me 15. So in row 1, column 1, we should have 15 in our answer. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, let me try to erase this highlighter. So we're going to erase the number. All right, so then we're going to go row 1, column 2. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. And then across and down, 3 times 1 is 3. What's negative 24 plus 3? Negative 21. So negative 21 is going to go in row 1, column 2 in my answer. Then I'm going to do row 2 and column 1. So again, 6 times 0 gives me 0. And then we go across and down, and 0 times 5 gives me another 0. So for my element in row 2, column 1, I should have 0. Is everybody okay with that? Row 2, column 1, 6 times 0 is 0. Across and down, 0 times 5 is 0. So that gives us a 0. And then we're going to do it again. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of the highlight. I'm going to go row 2, column 2. We're going to multiply. 6 times negative 6 gives me negative 36. And then we go across and down. 0 times 1 is 0. And so for row 2, column 2, we get a negative 36. So this is what your answer should look like. Row 1 is 15, negative 21. Row 2 is 0, negative 36. The good news is if you miss one of the numbers, you're not getting the whole thing wrong. You're going to lose points, okay? There's a lot of room for error here, so I would not count the whole question wrong just because you did one number wrong. Everybody kind of okay with that? Okay. Same 4 matrices. Try those 2. I'll get 2 and 3 for your first row and 2 and 1 for the second row. Okay, so let's talk about why. Let me work it out first. Row 1, column, row 2. Column 1, column 2. So. All right, so when we do this, bless you, we're going to go row 1, column 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 0 is 0, so we get 2. And then row 1, bless you, column 2, 2 times 0 is 0, and 3 times 1 is 3, so that gives us 3. And then we're going to go row 2, and we're going to do column 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 0 is 0, so that gives me 2. And then we're going to do row 2, column 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. And we end up with exactly the same matrix as A, because D is what we call an identity matrix. Ooh, I didn't write very well, did it? Let me try that again. It's called an identity matrix. Can't spell. And basically what that means is you're multiplying by 1. And to tell when you have an identity matrix is your main diagonal starting in the upper left corner going down to the right is going to be 1 and every other element is going to be 0. So for example, if I did a 3 by 3 identity matrix, my main diagonal would be 1 and then every other element would be, except for I didn't write a 1 there, did I? Okay, so that would be an identity matrix. That's a 3 by 3. So that main diagonal is 1. Everything else is 0. That's what you call an identity matrix. If you recognize that and you can keep that in your head, then you can say, oh, well, if I'm multiplying it by A, it's going to be exactly the same thing as A. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, we only got a couple, 3 more, I think. Same 4 matrices. This time I want you to do C squared. And that doesn't mean take and square everything in C. It means take C times C. So when you write it out, you're going to write C twice. Okay, C times C does not mean to go through and square everything. It means to multiply C by itself. So take a minute and do that one. All right. Row 1, row 2, column 1, column 2. All right, so row 1, column 1, I'm going to go 0 times 0, which gives me 0. Then we go across and down. So negative 6 times 5 gives me plus a negative 30. 0 plus negative 30 is negative 30. Then we're going to do row 1, column 2. So 0 times negative 6 is 0. And then across and down. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. 0 plus negative 6 is going to be negative 6. Then we're going to start row 2. Row 2, column 1. 5 times 0 is 0. We go across and down. 5 times 1 is 5, which gives me 5. And then we do row 2, column 2. 5 times negative 6 gives me negative 30. We go across and down. 1 times 1 is 1. What's negative 30 plus 1? Negative 29. So for my answer, first row is negative 30, negative 6. Second row is 5, negative 29. So do you see how it doesn't work out to just square the numbers? Are we okay with multiplying 2 by 2s? All right.